Hey guys.
Howdy, gentlemen.
Guys, how are you?
Doing great.
Good to see you. Where do you want us to look? Did you get the?
You can just talk to me.
Sorry. We'll just talk to you. So
I like it. You're too.
Yes.
That's a good.
I can take
Nobody
care
else
of
will
two.
talk to him. So.
yeah, take it from there. Let me say first, thanks for being here. I'm. Can you catch them real quick? See if they can shut that down.
Really good timing right there.
Perfect. Thanks, guys, very much. Really pleased to see my friend Senator Ted Cruz that's in town for the day. We were in Oklahoma City earlier today and Tulsa all this evening to be able to have him. We've worked together on a lot of different aspects within the Senate and a lot of different projects on this. Let me give you a couple of quick examples on that. One, we had 19 senators that Ted actually hosted down at the border last year in South Texas to be able to tour around the border as we were walking through all the different aspects. He and I both work on a lot of border issues, obviously him being a border state, but quite frankly, every state in America is a border state now, dealing with the drugs and the flow of people that are actually moving into the country. I serve on the Border Management Subcommittee within Homeland Security, and so it's a very important issue for me, and we work a lot on those issues together. We're also working on the issues just as recent as the last 24 hours on the Congressional Review Act, dealing with ghost guns, as President Biden seems to be blaming the rise in crime on ghost guns, a gun without a serial number on it, which is just not rational. And so we're trying to be able to process through this to be able to say, let's have rational ways to be able to handle this, but we've got to be able to put a stop to that regulation, say that doesn't help solve the problem. And so we work together on quite a few different issues on this, and so pleased to be able to see him come in today.
Why endorse him? He's got a challenger who says he's more conservative.
Well, I'm proud to be back in Oklahoma. I'm proud to be with the good men and women of this great state. We're friends, we're neighbors, and I'm here because I know James. He's a friend. He's a strong conservative. He's a leader, but he also knows what he believes. He's not, there are a lot of people in Washington that put their finger in the air and they want to see which way the wind is blowing, and they don't know their heart. They don't have a firm foundation. That's not James Lankford. James is a Christian. He's a pastor in a town where faith and wisdom is sorely needed, and he speaks from the heart. It is powerful. There is no stronger defender of life in the United States Senate than James Lankford. Every day, James is standing up looking for how can we protect every human life? How can we nurture and celebrate every life as a unique and a special gift from God? That's something, a passion many of us share. But there is no champion as committed, as dedicated, as from the heart defending life as James is. And he and I have worked on issue after issue after issue, whether it's securing the border, whether it's standing up for our constitutional rights, whether it's standing up for religious liberty, another issue James and I have worked together very, very closely on. The people of Oklahoma, I think, have a conservative values, but also just a common sense wisdom that the nation is sorely in need of. We're on the wrong path right now with the Biden White House, and I think we need leaders like James Lankford to help bring this country back and bring us to the common sense conservative principles that our country was built on.
Can I ask about a couple of the issues that you guys have raised already?
Sure.
We can talk about the ghost gun thing because that's happening right now. So I understand where you might have, might be at odds with that possible solution the president's talking about. What is the solution to gun violence in this country? I just drove past a billboard that says 8 children are getting killed daily just by guns that are left in the household. I mean, clearly there's something going on here. What is this solution?
Yeah, so there's several things. One is obviously we've got to be able to manage crime, what's happening. We see a lot of district attorneys in different parts of the country that are just ignoring crime. There was a criminal justice principle that was put in place years ago to test the broken window theory. If you ignore the broken window, you're going to continue to get an acceleration of more graffiti, more damage, more crime. Right now, there seems to be a lot of people just ignoring quote-unquote low-level crime and saying low-level crime is just low-level crime, we're not going to pay attention to that. Well, that just accelerates. We have to go back and enforce low-level crime again and find ways to get people into treatment, give people assistance, give people in some way to be able to get into recovery, to be able to help in those areas. The other issue is, as we're dealing with guns, there are already federal laws that are in place that deal with firearms of individuals. If an individual's committed a felony, they can't have a gun. That's already there. That needs to be able to be enforced. If a person has a conviction for domestic violence, they can't have a firearm. That's already federal law right now. there's not enough enforcement in the areas where there's already federal law to be able to deal with how are we going to actually protect individuals. But at the end of the day, a gun without a serial number or a gun with a serial number is not going to make a difference on whether there's a gun crime. That's not going to change anything. To say if I remove the possibility of a gun with a serial number, that's going to lower crime, and say that this person's going to commit a murder and now won't go find access to a gun somewhere, it's just not rational. So we're trying to say if individuals like to put a gun together in a kit, they still have to be legal to own a firearm, to be able to own a quote-unquote ghost gun, the same as there are someone else. Just don't call that a solution. That's not a solution.
Well, and let me add to that, which is that the Biden White House is playing politics and trying to distract from their failed record on crime. In Oklahoma, in Texas, across the country, people are worried about crime. They're seeing crime rates skyrocket, and there's a reason. The reason is the Democrats have been pushing a misguided policy. They've been advocating defunding the police. They've been advocating abolishing the police. They've been putting in place left-wing George Soros prosecutors that refuse to prosecute violent criminals. The Biden White House keeps nominating. They have 2 senior officials in the U.S. Department of Justice who were among the leading advocates in the country of abolishing the police. Joe Biden keeps nominating judges, judicial nominees who are soft on crime, who keep letting violent criminals go. And the predictable result when you let violent criminals go, when you refuse to prosecute violent criminals, is crime rates go up, murder rates go up, carjacking rates go up. We're seeing this all across the country. So what are Biden and the Democrats trying to do? They're trying to demagogue. And so this whole so-called ghost gun issue is a made-up issue. What they want to do is they want to say crime is a result of you. It's a result of law-abiding citizens exercising their Second Amendment right and having firearms protect their family. That's not the cause of crime. If you want to stop crime, you go after the bad guys. You have to go after the criminals. You go after the murderers. You go after the people who commit violent crimes. Joe Biden and the Democrats don't want to do that. Instead, they want to take away firearms from law-abiding men and women in Oklahoma. That doesn't help crime. If anything, it increases crime by making us more vulnerable and less able to protect our families.
Oklahoma and Texas both produce a lot of oil. Can you tell the folks back home why are we paying so darn much at the pump these days?
You want to start that and I'll clean up?
Sure.
Yeah.
Look, we're seeing inflation skyrocketing across the country, but at no place is it more brutal than at the gas pump. And the thing to understand, this is not an accident. It's not an unintended side effect. This is the deliberate result of promises that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi made. Joe Biden, when he was campaigning for president, said that he was going to shut down drilling on federal lands. He was going to shut it off and end drilling. And he's worked hard to deliver on those promises. That's one of the very few promises that he's worked hard to deliver on. And you look at, in the opening days of the administration, first day in office, Biden shut down the Keystone Pipeline, killed 11,000 jobs, 8,000 union jobs with the stroke of a pen. A few days later, Biden shut down all new leases on federal lands, both onshore and offshore. Together, they comprise 25% of oil and gas production in the country. He shut down all new leases. A few days after that, he shut down development in ANWR, the incredibly petroleum-rich, very small section of Alaska, shut it down. We've seen oil and gas production in the United States drop and stay consistently low. We are producing 1.5 million barrels a day less of oil today than we did at the peak under the Trump administration, and that's what Biden promised to do. And the effect is gas prices are going up and up and up and up. And you know, we're right now seeing the first land war in Europe since World War II. And I got to say, the Biden White House, when it comes to inflation, they've had no less than 5 different explanations for inflation. Their first explanation, they said it isn't happening. It's not real. No credible economist would tell you it was happening. Well, the problem is that was false. Explanation number 2, they said, well, it's happening, but it's transitory. It's just going to be here a minute, then it's going to go away. Well, that didn't hold water either. Explanation number 3, the White House Chief of Staff said it's a high-class problem. It's happening, it's not transitory, but it's high-class. I don't know what that means, but apparently you're in really good shape if you're feeling the pain of inflation. Explanation number 4 was it's happening, it's not transitory, it's not high-class, but it's a good thing. It's a sign of just how good the economy is, that prices are skyrocketing. And then explanation number 5 that every Democrat is repeating is Putin, Putin, Putin. They want to blame it all on Vladimir Putin. When Joe Biden took the oath of office, the average gas price in the United States was $2.38 a gallon. Now it is $4.16 a gallon. And to be clear, gas had risen 50% before Russia invaded Ukraine. This is a result of their policies that are killing jobs and hurting consumers here in Oklahoma.
Yeah, couldn't agree more on that. This has been the fight on this, is that the gas prices went up $1 before the war in Ukraine ever started. And they continue to be able to say this is all Vladimir Putin's fault when everyone has felt this for an entire year. This was a very deliberate plan. This is like the issue on the border. It's not an accident that we have 1 million people crossing the border. They changed the policies in place that actually facilitated that. They changed policies that actually facilitated an increase in prices, and they were clear early on. They want people to move to electric vehicles. They want people to move to other types of transportation, and the way to do that was to raise prices on gasoline. What they didn't expect is how hard the American people are pushing back and saying, hey, it's $100 to fill up my truck now. I don't like this. And so now they're trying to find some way to be able to gimmick it out. This week, we're going to do more ethanol. Last week, it was we're going to open the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. It seems to be everything but we're going to produce more oil and gas in America to be able to increase the supply. The amazing thing about this is if you go into Biden's actual numbers that his administration has put out, they predict over the next 30 years, we're going to have an increasing demand worldwide for oil, gas, coal. The Biden administration's own numbers. So they see the issue, but they see the issue as say we need more, but we're not going to do it in America. We're going to buy it more internationally. It's the biggest issue on the Keystone Pipeline that people don't talk about. The Keystone Pipeline decision, everyone says is about a pipeline. It wasn't. It was about the source of energy, of where we're going to get it, from America or somewhere else. The amount that we buy from Russia is almost exactly the amount that we were going to get from the Keystone Pipeline. And in the first week of the Biden administration, to get heavy crude, which is what we get from Russia, we could either get it from Canada, we could get it from the Gulf Coast of the United States, off our offshore drilling, or we could get it from Russia. In the first week of the Biden administration, he said, we're not going to get it from Canada. He shut down drilling in the Gulf Coast and said, we're going to get it from Russia. And now we're all suffering the consequences of that bad foreign policy decision.
Can I ask a follow-up to that? Because my understanding is the Biden administration sees all these oil leases on federally owned lands that are sitting there idle and saying, guys, either pump the oil or start paying us some money or give up those leases. It seems like they're trying to get the oil companies to step up. What can the president actually do to force oil companies to drill more? They're not drilling.
Listen, I got to say, you and I don't know each other, but
we've talked before. But go ahead.
But you seem like far too intelligent a man to find that nonsense. I mean, it really is a ridiculous argument. Biden promised, I'm going to shut down oil and gas drilling. He didn't hide it. He told the voters, if you elect me, that's what I'm going to do. And it is relentless. Literally every week they put another policy in place, another policy in place. Just a few weeks ago, the SEC put in place a new rule to dry up equity financing for oil and gas drilling so that you can invest in it. Biden has nominated banking regulators to dry up, to cut off debt financing so you can't engage in new drilling. And so their ridiculous lie, they say, well, there are a bunch of permits. You know what? Having a permit doesn't mean you can drill. You got to be able to build a pipeline to take what you drill and get it to market. They won't let you build a pipeline. You got to get through all of the other processes, and you got to also have the capital. Biden is cutting off the capital for drilling and then saying, gosh, you guys won't drill. And the reason I say you're too bright to follow that,
Which is actually true for him.
is, listen, they're arguing these mean, greedy oil companies don't want any oil. You got gasoline, you got oil prices at historic highs, and they don't want any. That is truly absurd. And if they're arguing this is somehow good for them, why were we producing 13 million barrels a day of oil under the Trump administration, and why are we producing only 11.5 million today? This is the result of the commitments that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris made to the Green New Deal radicals, and they're trying to find a bad guy. And so their two favorite bad guys right now are Putin or the mean oil companies. Look, oil companies, like any other business, like to make money, and right now their product is really expensive, which means if they could drill for more oil, they would. They're not doing it because this administration is using the full force of the federal government to cut off their cash to make it impossible, and the risk of doing so. I talk to producers all the time in Texas who are afraid to put more capital into drilling because this administration is trying to do everything they can to drive them out of business, and then for them to stand there and gaslight everyone and saying, gosh, we want you to drill. I'd be happy to have 1 week pass without the Biden administration announcing a new rule designed to shut down oil and gas drilling in the United States. I can't think of a week in a long time where that hadn't happened.
Yeah, and I would only say, they keep saying 9,000 permits are out there, they're not using that. They know full well that when you go in and get a permit, you get one section of it. There's a whole nother section that you're not getting because you're gonna go in and test that. You're gonna test the geology. If you actually figure out it works, then you wanna lease everything else around it. You're not gonna send a bunch of capital into one little section. You wanna be able to get the whole thing. And so they know, they can say there's 9,000 out there, why aren't you doing that? They know the deal. They're fully aware that companies are, if they can't get any of the stuff around them, are not going to start drilling in that area. Or if they do start drilling on the day that it opens up and they prove this is successful, somebody else as a competitor is going to get the one next to them on it. So again, there are common sense reasons that are out there that really are very pragmatic. But as Ted was saying on it, just last week, the Biden administration was saying oil companies need to drill more, and in his budget, he released a budget with 15 new taxes on oil and gas production. 15 new taxes were proposed by the Biden administration the same week he said drill more. So it is say one thing and do another constantly.
You have time for one more
Let me,
question.
let's go back in time. This state chose you before they chose Donald Trump. Is Oklahoma got a special place in your heart?
I love the state of Oklahoma. I've said many times, Oklahoma and Texas, we agree on absolutely everything except football. And that's all right. And I wish the state of Texas was a little better at football right now, but that'll come. We'll get back to that. Now, look, the people of Oklahoma, I love this state. This is a state of people that have strong conservative values, that have strong faith. They just have common sense. I believe the whole country would be a lot better off if we could get back to common sense Oklahoma values. And I'll tell you, James is someone who not only is fighting for those values, but doing it with a smile. Listen, there's no need to be angry. There's no need to be mean. My political hero has always been Ronald Reagan. He was a happy warrior. And one of the reasons I'm so proud to support my friend is he is a happy warrior. He doesn't demonize. He doesn't attack his opponents. Now, he'll disagree on substance. He'll lay out why they're wrong. But he does so from a spirit of joy, from a spirit of substance, from a spirit of truth. I think we need a lot more of that in this country.
Could I ask you one more? Our abortion clinics are filled with women from Texas. We just banned abortion. Do you think Texas will follow Oklahoma's